Hello and welcome to the Constitution video quiz. I'm your host, Constance Adams. We're about to embark on a journey through the U.S. Constitution. And then, some of my friends will test the extent of your knowledge with a super series of quick quiz questions. So listen closely, because all the answers to the questions are included in our presentation. All right then, pay attention now. Here goes. Back in 1786, the United States consisted of 13 states, loosely bound by the Articles of Confederation. Each state governed its own matters separately. A group of state representatives served as the National Congress, but when they had to settle matters between themselves or solve problems on a national level, they had difficulty agreeing on solutions. This left the young nation weak and vulnerable. The central government had no power to build a military for national defense. In 1786, Alexander Hamilton called a meeting in Annapolis, Maryland, to resolve trade problems among the states, but representatives from only 5 states showed up. So the members of the Annapolis Convention called on Congress and the individual states to meet in Philadelphia in 1787 to amend the current Articles of Confederation. Before the delegates could convene, however, an important event encouraged wider interest in government reform. State governments had been charging high taxes on farms. If owners couldn't pay, the courts would imprison the debtors and sell the farms for the taxes owed. Daniel Shays led 600 Massachusetts farmers in a rebellion against the state Supreme Court. To stop the foreclosures, they threw judges out of their courts and freed debtors from jails. Shays' rebellion signaled a need for stronger direction and a fair representation of citizens in government. State leaders feared this event would encourage people to take matters into their own hands, and order would give way to anarchy. It was time to organize a strong central government to unite the states. 74 delegates were appointed to the convention in Philadelphia, but only 55 actually attended. The sessions began on May 25, 1787, at the Pennsylvania State House. Leaders in Rhode Island refused to participate. They insisted on remaining a completely independent state. The participating delegates unanimously voted George Washington to preside over the Constitutional Convention. Attendees included such notable figures as Benjamin Franklin, Alexander Hamilton, and James Madison. Madison became a leading member of the convention and took notes of the historical event. Because of his contributions, he is known as the Father of the Constitution. Edmund Randolph of Virginia proposed a government with 3 branches: legislative, executive, and judicial. Each branch would have a responsibility to check the others. Does this sound familiar? Most agreed with the 3 branches, but a major debate about the structure of the legislative branch arose between small and large states. The larger states liked the Virginia plan, where representatives would be elected by a popular vote. But the smaller states argued that the large states would control the national legislature. Instead, they proposed the New Jersey plan, with all states having an equal number of representatives. Finally, the delegates reached the Great Compromise, also known as the Connecticut Compromise. They decided to have 2 houses in the legislature. Population would determine the number of state representatives in the House, each state electing their own. In the second House, or Senate, each state would have equal representation, or 2 members. Other major disputes pitted the North against the South. Because their population was smaller, the South feared the North states would dominate foreign trade treaties at the national level. So the Southern states demanded a 2/3 majority be required in the Senate to ratify treaties. The North and South also disagreed on the slavery issue. One compromise prohibited Congress from regulating foreign slave trade until 1808. Another allowed Southern states to count 3/5 of the slave population toward representation in the House, even though slaves were not allowed to vote. This helped to even out the representation in Congress. With these issues finally decided, the delegates turned to drafting the Constitution. Gouverneur Morris wrote the final draft of the Constitution. On September 17, 1787, 39 delegates signed the new Constitution and sent it to the Congress of the Confederation. The Congress had to gain the states' approval. According to the Constitution, 9 states had to ratify it in order to begin the new government. On December 7, 1787, Delaware became the first state to ratify. Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Georgia, and Connecticut followed suit within a month. Massachusetts ratified on the grounds that a Bill of Rights would be added. Soon after, Maryland and South Carolina also ratified, and on June 21, 1788, New Hampshire became the 9th state to ratify the Constitution. It was official, but 2 very important states were still opposed: Virginia and New York. To help convince New Yorkers to approve the Constitution, Alexander Hamilton, John Jay, and James Madison wrote essays entitled the Federalist Papers. In the 85 essays, they defended the need for a strong national government and discussed the weaknesses in the Articles of Confederation. Their opponents, such as Elbridge Gerry, Patrick Henry, Richard Henry Lee, and George Mason, became known as the Anti-Federalists. They believed the new Constitution gave Congress and the President too much power and authority. Eventually, the Federalists influenced the opposition to change their minds. Virginia and New York ratified later that summer. North Carolina and Rhode Island would not ratify until the delegates put in a Bill of Rights. Several states that had already ratified the Constitution agreed. James Madison and others sorted through the many suggestions and proposed 12 amendments. 10 were approved and added to the Constitution as the Bill of Rights. Many felt very strongly about protecting the rights of individual citizens from a powerful government. The First Amendment grants citizens the freedoms of religion, speech, assembly, petition, and the press. The right to keep and bear arms is stated in the second. The fourth protects against unreasonable search and seizure. The right to life, liberty, and property is the fifth, and the eighth prohibits cruel and unusual punishments. With the Bill of Rights in place, the other states approved the Constitution, and a new era in the United States of America was born.